All right, welcome everyone to today's Helm community meeting. It is February 3rd, 2022. Sorry, my cuckoo clock just went off. I will be moderating today. We have Bridget on notes, and our first agenda item is an announcement. Bridget, do you want to talk about Matt Farina getting appointed to the CNCF TOC?
I mean, I could, or we could ask Mr. Farina to address the academy. Apparently, he's in a governing board seat. It's very fancy. Yeah. What's your plan for your imminent takeover of the whole planet?
I don't know. Show up to meetings and do stuff. Do what Amy tells me to do. I think, my goal there is really, there's a lot of people who deal with apps and app development and dealing with not just managing your infrastructure. And I spent a lot of years doing that stuff. And so to try to help that and to help projects along, and everything's growing. There's over 100 projects in the CNCF now because there's so many sandbox projects. And there's a huge list submitted for even more. And so how do you manage the growing sprawl? That's it.
Congratulations.
Indeed, congratulations.
Thank you, I think. I'll get back to you in a year.
Congratulations / thank you for your service.
How long is the appointment?
2 years.
Nice.
So the way they do it is every seat is for 2 years, and about half the board they replace every year. Okay. And the board is made up with 6 seats chosen by the CNCF governing board. 3 of those are elected each year. Then the end user committee, which is a subgroup of the CNCF that just deals with, that's just end users. There's no vendors in that group. They're just people who consume this stuff. A company like Apple would be an end user, right? They don't vendor this stuff, but they do use cloud native technologies for their own operations. And that group gets to choose, I think it's 1 or 2. And so they'll choose somebody every so often. And then the developers of, I should say, the maintainers of the projects that are incubating and graduated also get to choose one. In fact, if you ever want to learn about that maintainer voting process, oh my gosh, it's absolutely crazy the way they break it down with projects and have to look at what projects and voting percentages. It's absolutely crazy. But they all get to choose a certain number of seats. And then the TOC itself gets to choose a seat too. So those of us who were voted in will get seated like next Tuesday. And then in a month, there's another new person who'll come in because it's the person the TOC decides to have, because they also get to pick somebody. And so it's really a mix of these people and where they come from. So you get a lot of diversity organizationally that way.
Nice.
All right.
Oh,
That's all I got.
well, congrats, Matt.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Next we have Josh. Do you want to talk about Turret Museum, started at 14, and a new maintainer, Casey?
Yeah, so just 2 weeks ago, I was almost in tears about the state of Chart Museum. And then Joe introduced me or got me in touch with Casey, who's on the call here. And he has been great helping out, basically getting, PRs looked at and things merged. And then we got the release process fixed up, and we just released on Monday. So thanks everyone, Joe, Casey, Matt Farina, for putting this into a good place. That's it.
Oh, welcome, Casey.
Thank you.
It looks like Matt is typing. Matt, would you like to talk about Chart Museum and a bomb?
Sure. I think this is really good. So BOM or SBOM is a software build of materials. It tells you what's inside of that package you're getting. for all the secure software supply chain stuff people are doing right now, we're starting to see more and more and more of this, even though this stuff's been around for years. Like SPDX, the standard that Chart Museum used in their latest release, where they have an SBOM, is got an ISO standard. It's been around for so long, right? It's not new, but now we're seeing more and more and more of this. And so Chart Museum now has an SBOM in its releases, and Josh is putting together proposals around doing that for Helm. And I think as far as the secure software supply chain aspect goes, this is wonderful because a lot of places are starting to ask for this stuff now. So nice job, Josh.
Thanks. Just copied some YAMLs and got a bomb.
All right, next under discussion, back to Farina. Do you want to talk about the bot handling the size labels?
Yeah, so I'm next. And I wanted some feedback on this. Oh, where's my link? So we have our own custom bot that does size labeling everywhere. And it is running on an old Kubernetes cluster. And the source code hasn't been touched in about 2 years, but it's based on the Kubernetes software that does this size handling. Because back when we did it, we broke out of the Kubernetes organization and we were breaking away from a lot of their infrastructure. And this was easy for us to set up in a cluster that was already doing a bunch of stuff. And now I think that's the only thing we have left running in that cluster we've got. So we'd like to decommission it. And the bot needs its tokens updated. And there's a bunch of stuff with it that just needs some love and care. And instead of doing that, I thought it would be appropriate to look at other ways we could get that same size labeling. And I looked at a bunch of other projects because there's like 8 graduated and incubating projects that are doing the same kind of thing. And a few of them are using the Kubernetes stuff, but a lot of them have their own stuff. And a bunch of them are even running their own bots themselves. But there's a couple of them that are using a GitHub app called pull request size. Let me see if I can find the link real quick. And I didn't have the URL up yet, but it's called pull request size. And it's an app you add to an organization to do sizing for you. And it's free, and the developer works at Datadog, but it's not necessarily associated with them. It's just something he threw up. And it's something I was looking at. The code is all open source. It's up on GitHub, but he obviously operates it himself. And a couple of the other CNCF incubating projects are using this today. And so I was looking at this. We'd originally talked about using GitHub Actions. The problem with Actions is you need to, the action token is based on the person who created the pull request and their permissions. And so adding and removing labels totally works if I create the pull request. If some random person out using GitHub decides to create a pull request against Helm, they don't have permissions to apply labels, so they don't work. So doing something like this in GitHub Actions isn't going to end up working. It's one of the limitations of the bots that do this. They're great if it's a private team doing something, but they don't work so well for the massive open source projects. And I was looking at this bot to take over, or this, it's a pro bot basically based on that framework to do it. And I was wondering if anybody had any feedback or thoughts on this.
And we can't
You
leverage.
add the bot, so you add the bot as a user of the project?
You add it
it?
as an app to the org because it's a
Okay.
GitHub app. And then so it gets things scoped on an app, and then the app gets certain permissions
Right.
in order to do things. The permissions it gets are, let me pull them up. I knew what they were. It is like read permission to metadata, read permission to the git attributes file, and the .github/labels.yaml file, which is where you can configure certain things about the YAML if you want it, and then read write permission on pull requests. And that's it. And you need
And
to get,
I'm assuming this is event driven too, like whenever a pull request comes in, It'll,
Yeah. Yep.
okay, trigger,
And-
okay.
It
Can we-
triggers it, and you need the read in order to read the pull request code and how many lines are changed, and
Mhm.
write in order to apply labels.
Can we
Seems
leverage any
reasonable.
of the default workflow permissioning model of GitHub to elevate the necessary permissions that we
No.
need? No?
No.
Okay.
In fact, there's long thread issues where people have tried to do this exact thing with GitHub Actions, and it doesn't because of the security model. So when I ran into this the other day, I hit search engines up to see what I could find, and a lot of people have run into this exact problem. And the solution they say is you need something like an app instead of something in GitHub Actions.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
I mean, what's the alternative? You have to build your own app, right? So
The alternative
if
is
it
you do what we do today, which is we operate a bot that goes off of a pull request that basically has the same level of permissions as this bot. The difference is they run the source and the service, or we run it.
Okay.
Do we outsource it to this person who isn't one of us to do it? I would love it if the CNCF itself hosted and operated this kind of service, or the Linux Foundation, but they're not operating anything like this right now.
It looks like, just at a glance at this particular repo, it looks like the blast radius is pretty small. If it somehow became malicious, I mean, you would probably notice if it suddenly just started closing lots of your requests for no reason or something. So
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty low risk and not as much of a heavy lift as us having to write something that would basically be this. So I would say lazy consensus rules, of course, but I don't see any reason not to try this.
I'm going to send it out to all the maintainers as well for feedback, but I figured having a discussion here first was probably a good idea.
Matt, do you know if the labels are the same numbers, for lack of a better words? So like a small is what we're used to, or do we have to just tell the maintainers be careful? Well, be aware that the size
It's-
change a bit.
It's configurable, and the default is
Oh.
the same.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, everything. I wonder if the person basically did it off of the Kubernetes numbers like we did, because I found there are a number of the even GitHub Actions that people have tried to do around this use those exact same numbers. And so I have a feeling it all flows out of what Kubernetes did in the beginning, but their defaults are, I believe, the same as ours. If not, it's something we can tweak. That's what that YAML file in the GitHub directory is for. So you can tweak stuff like this.
Thanks.
All right, are we good here? Cool. All right, the next agenda item is Bridget. She's typing. Bridget, would you like to talk about any recommended tools for pre-detecting images in the Helm chart?
Yes. So this discussion came up, and I was in an unrelated discussion that came to this. And I see Runyon added a link to the HIP that's already in progress to perhaps do something to identify images in a Helm chart. And I looked at the HIP, and it looks like Mr. Farina commented on it in the last month, et cetera. So perhaps this HIP for identifying images in Helm chart 215 is worth reconsidering and seeing if we can start moving this along. I'm wondering if we have any further discussions we want to have here, or do we want to just kind of take it offline and let people look at and consider it some more? I'm interested especially in what Mr. Farina thinks, since it looks like he reviewed it last month.
Yeah, I totally forgot about this one. It fell off my radar. It would be great if we had an annotation that did this, is my opinion. And it's probably a documentation thing more than anything. So the reason that it's hard to identify the images is because so many people add CRDs and then have custom resources, and you have no idea what the structure is in order to go find the images in there. And that makes it impossible to know exactly what in a chart where all the images are. So having a list somewhere, something people have long wanted, we can't just add a new property to the chart YAML file without incrementing the version for chart. So to go to chart v3, which we can't do until Helm v4. So the easy way around this is to use an annotation and document it and then have tools work around that. Artifact already has an annotation that does the same thing to list images, and it will try to auto detect. So if people want to, if they want to just have something today that works, they can probably use that, and it does auto detection. Like if I come over to the Bitnami WordPress chart, and I just use WordPress all the time as my dummy example. If you go there and you scroll down on the right side, you're going to see something that says container images, and they'll point you to 2 container images with a little, copy button there where you can copy the full name. And that's something that they've been able to parse out of the rendered manifests based on the manifest being rendered by default with just the default configuration, nothing special put in. So if you've got opt-in configuration that adds more things, that add more images, it won't detect it. So it's kind of hard because you don't know all the configuration options you can pass in. That's what makes this whole problem hard too. And so having an annotation, an artifact has one defined in its docs, would work. And I think it would be really good if we had a general Helm one, just because I think then other projects could start to adopt that as a convention and start to analyze it.
So when you say a general Helm one, you mean an annotation that just says like images?
Yeah. And I would follow something similar to what Artifact Hub has done as far as defining some of those things.
Okay, cool. And I know Madhav, you joined the call to discuss this. Does this give you a pointer of how to get started on helping with this, or what questions or other feedback do you have for us?
Yeah, this would be, I would say this would be a great start. So as Matt said, yeah, so it would be difficult to find what images are being used by the chat. So we are also kind of looking into something like this. Yep, this would be a great start.
Yeah. And if you want to do something today, you can just use the Artifact Hub annotation because it works with the Artifact Hub website today. Of course, I'm totally biased as that's one of my other projects. But we should have a Helm one that people can generically use. An Artifact Hub will just start picking it up.
Yep. I'm looking for the generic Helm one too.
Yeah. And as far as it goes, we need Helm core maintainers for the Helm client to be beaten over the head to go review the the HIP, as we need to put a little time in there.
Okay, so our action item for all Helm core maintainers is to go look at that HIP. And I put the link in the chat.
Is there anything I can do to help shepherd that? I'm probably interested in the same use case Josh is probably interested in. I built a CLI to do bombs for Helm charts as part of a government contract. So definitely interested in pairing on that as you develop that, Josh.
Feel free to find me in Slack or something. But I was taking something off the shelf that's used in Kubernetes, but I think you're talking about building something into charts, which yeah, I think it's a different thing, but we should talk.
Sounds good.
Okay, and I think this is Tom's HIP. So our action item here is Tom is going to follow up with Josh and try to move this HIP forward. And the other folks are going to, the other maintainers are going to comment on the HIP. Does that sound accurate? Okay, thank you.
Next item is also Bridget's. Do you want to talk about? Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Question about this one, and this is probably the kind of question that all the maintainers go, oh, one of these. It looks like we have a pull request that had been in progress for a while that does something people in general seem to want, yet it needs a little bit of work to bring it up to date and fix bugs that were found in code review. And I'm kind of going to put this question out to the general public of, new upcoming maintainers, interested parties on the call, et cetera. Does pull request 7728, which lets Helm 3 do something Helm 2 used to do, show resource names that were part of a deployment. This needs a bit of work to bring it up to date and fix some bugs, but it looks like we might be able to ship it if somebody could put time into working on it. And I had a question come in out of band saying like, why doesn't this work? Well, it doesn't work because somebody has to do it. That's how open source works. So this is a call to the assembled. Does that look relevant to anyone's interest? Is there somebody who wants to try to bring that one to be merged? If it's either relevant to your interests or if you want to get something that the maintainers seem in favor of, and it would probably be into 3.9 if somebody wanted to do it. What do folks think of that? Bringing a Helm 2 feature into Helm 3 and modernizing it.
I haven't read through the 54 comments in there, but I know this particular feature has been a sensitive topic in the sense that a lot of people would like it, but from what I remember, it was tricky to implement. It was hard to keep maintained or something of the sort, and so I felt like the other maintainers it was back in the day with what's his name?
I think
Well, of
Fisher
course,
reviewed
Bacon
this.
Cobbler, but
Yeah, he reviewed it a number of times, and I know a bunch of work has gone into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So back in the day, the way this worked was we were able to pull a lot of this out of the kubectl packages, which would generate it. And they generated text only. Everything's become more complicated in Helm 3 because the output of this isn't just text, it's also YAML and JSON when you'd want to get this. So now we need to get that information in other ways. The rendering of this also moved out of where it used to be into a different place inside of Kubernetes packages, which is actually why it stopped working in Helm 2 at one point, and we had to go re-implement it over there. So it's just a lot more complicated to get it working in, text, in JSON and YAML, and make sure everything renders right, given the fact that libraries and stuff moved around. And that's also why it was kind of hard to maintain, because they shifted stuff. Basically, they went to a server-side rendering of this. And so somebody's got to go unwrap all of that again and make it work in all the different places, which I would love to personally see, though now it needs to sit behind a flag in Helm 3 because it would be changing the output of the UI.
So an exciting Kubernetes archaeology project. That's a help wanted. Right. I will take my answer off the air. Back to you, Karen.
Cool. Last discussion item. We have David. Would you like to ask your question about index.yaml entries?
Thank you. Yeah. So I just have a question about some of the standards. Is this something that is set in stone, or it's just a tradition that people happens to be following? When it comes to the entries in the index.yaml, does it have to be exactly the same as the name of the chart? And the same question for the naming of the tar GC in the URLs. Does it have to follow the chart name dash version format that Helm package does, or the Helm index does for us?
We'd have to go look at the code. I think there have been problems over time when it didn't follow that format, but I don't remember what's going on with it. Somebody would have to dig through the code to figure it out, because I don't know that it's documented. I think people have had problems when it does not follow the naming format. The name of the chart no longer needs to follow the name of the directory anymore. That used to be enforced, but we broke away from that. But the name of the file, the TGZ file, we'd have to go look at it. I don't know what the code
we
is.
found an issue, and the issue is with dependencies already. So if you embed that specific chart from that repo that doesn't follow that naming convention as a dependency, then the way it brings it into the charts directory with the different name than the chart,
Yep.
it looks like it doesn't like it. You know,
No, you're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be the only thing. Now, is that considered a bug, or is that considered breaking out of the naming convention? And is that something that we should document, as this should be a
We
hard
should
convention?
document it. We should
Yeah.
document it because of backwards compatibility. Say you change it in a future version of Helm, then those older versions of Helm that pull that chart are now going to have a broken experience,
Correct.
even if they're Helm v3, because we actually do have a certain amount of different versions in use out there. And so now you've done that breaking change to older versions that people are still using. If people
Correct.
start doing that, that's the problem. You couldn't change something like that until Helm v4 and keep compatibility everywhere.
So we should not allow the file to be named differently. In other words, right?
Yeah, we shouldn't.
We shouldn't, because it breaks the dependency experience.
Mhm.
Okay. So I think I'm going to add an issue if there's not one already out there on, adding documentation to make sure that it's clear, and maybe add some code to enforce that. Thank you.
Thanks. Is anyone interested in helping volunteer to do issue triage with Joe for this next coming week? Joe has volunteered to co-triage if someone can help for that.
If not, I'll just do my best.
We'll take that. I guess, does anyone have anything else? Otherwise, we can wrap up. Okay, cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We will see you next Thursday. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.